Welcome back to another episode of The Lofty Lender. I'm excited to have William Strong on the show today. William is a partner at Lamberti, Goki & P.C., where he brings a thoughtful, client-focused approach to the practice of law. His extensive experience spans civil litigation, family law, estate planning, business law, real estate transactions, and more. Whether it's helping clients navigate their best days or guiding them through their toughest challenges, William's dedication to creative, detail-oriented solutions is second to none. An Iowa native, William grew up in Des Moines and earned his bachelor's degree in government and international politics from George Mason University. He went on to graduate with high honors from Drake University Law School. Today, he lives in Bondurant with his wife and 2 children. William's commitment extends beyond his legal work. He's actively involved in the community through organizations like the Ankeny Chamber of Commerce, Ankeny Rotary, and the Ankeny School Foundation. His passion for giving back shines through in everything he does. Please welcome William Strong to the show.
Thanks for having me on today, Kyle.
Absolutely, buddy. All right. So William and I go way back here. We actually used to be in a networking organization. And even before that, he was in a networking organization with my business partner. And we started connecting right from the get-go there. And it's been fun watching you grow. I mean, I think when you first started out, you were not a partner and you were busting your hind end, working the 80 hours a week in order to get there. So congratulations, first off, on getting to that point.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about why law school sounded fun, because to be honest, I don't know why anybody wants to spend that much time in school.
Well, I'll never lie and say it was fun. It was a lot of work, obviously. But, for me, I've always had an interest in helping people, something I enjoy doing. That's kind of my background. And I've always found my greatest skill set in doing that's my ability to communicate. It's something I did a lot through high school and college. I was on a college debate program, and that was a nationally renowned program. So for me, when I left college and wanted to figure out what I was actually going to do with a government degree, because in all honesty, that's not a practical degree to just go into the workplace with, law school became the natural answer for me. It's something I always had envisioned myself doing, but it was an easy and smooth transition.
Awesome. So what's the most fulfilling part of helping people in this lifestyle, I guess, for you? Especially because you have so many different avenues that you work in, right? You work in estate planning and real estate and just so many different things.
Yeah, great question. There's a great deal of my work is what I call the happy work, for lack of better words. That's your real estate, your estate planning, adoptions, things like that, where people are generally coming to you for good reasons. They're happy about them. There's no bad result or bad reason they're coming to see a lawyer. But then there's the other side of it, because I do a lot of litigation work, and that can meld into real estate and other things, where people sometimes are coming to me on one of their most anxious and fearful days of their lives because they don't know what's happening, and being able to guide them through that and give them a reasoned and rational way of how to look at what's going on in their lives and how we're going to improve it or at least protect them really helps people.
So your bio highlights the importance of creativity and thoroughness in legal work. Can you share an example of how thinking outside the box has led to a successful outcome for a client? And also, how can you be creative in your world when everything is pretty much by the book, right?
Yeah, so that's where it's kind of fun. Law, even though we have our set of laws, we have our precedent that we get from our appellate courts on how laws are interpreted or what the standard is in a case. There's gray area. There's room to be imaginative. There's room to come up with new ways to think about a problem. And that's the creativity. Just because you have a set of facts that may be horrible for your client doesn't mean you can't make an argument or a really creative argument to try to cauterize what's going on and make the situation a little bit better. So a lot of times when we take on a case, we're doing a deep dive into pretty much everything that goes into that. So what are all of the facts that could impact this case? And it's really trying to get clients to think outside the box because they don't know what you need. They don't know what's important. So it's trying to gather enough information to then make informed decisions along the way and create an argument for them or negotiate a document, negotiate a contract, a lease, whatever that might be, to give them the best opportunity possible under those circumstances. So that's where you're going to take kind of the static, stoic part of the law and then make it meet what your client needs or what has to happen.
So then tell me this. I'm thinking about kind of going off script with my questions here because you just hit on something. You've got people that come into you that are, I would guess, the people that come into you and have a not so great situation, they don't really want to talk to an attorney. my guess is those are the people that are more likely to talk to a couple of attorneys. So how do you build trust and ensure them that I'm going to be your guy, I'm going to be able to help you out, or maybe I'm not your guy, but like, how do you go through that process with them? And what does that look like if I came in and said, William, I've got an issue and I'm talking to a couple other people. I just want to know what you can do for me.
Sure. So my biggest fallback to that is honesty and transparency. That's what people want at the end of the day. And that's what they deserve as clients. And I tell probably 10 people a day, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything for them. I'm going to tell them the way it is, what I honestly think is going to happen based on the information we have, and outline different options or solutions for them. That doesn't mean they're going to like what they have to hear, but I am not the kind of attorney that's going to sit here and pretend that everything's puppies and rainbows when it's not. Because at the end of the day, if we get into a situation where it doesn't turn out that way, the only person they're going to be mad at is me. And that's not fair to them. They need to know what they're getting into. They need to know what actual expectations are, even if they're not in a place they really want to hear that or understand that, because that's going to help them prepare for what's coming and then make good decisions based on whatever situation they're in to ensure that they're not in a worse situation 9 months from now. That's the goal.
So then getting a little more personal here, how has being a husband and father influenced your perspective when guiding your clients?
Well, it keeps you a little bit grounded, right? I mean, you have life experiences. You're able to relate better to people. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. There's the side of the law that is, and I think we get a very common misconception in the public. You hear about trial lawyers, for example, and how horrible they are. That's a common thing you'll hear in the news.
They are terrible, aren't they?
Well, hey, I'm a trial lawyer. I think I'm not a bad person, right?
I'm just teasing.
But that's the reality of it. We get all these misconceptions about this profession, in particular, that we're out to take people's money. We're out just to make a dollar. That's not the case for most of us. And certainly I don't put myself in that category. We're empathetic. We get it. We try to understand and know what people are going through and how that impacts their daily lives. And being a husband, being a father, having that kind of own personal life, I can empathize with what's going on, because if that happened to me, whatever the circumstances are, I know how it would feel, at least to a degree, and I can understand what a client might be going through.
Yeah, you talk about that, and I think about myself and how I'm very non-confrontational. And I have to assume that being on the debate team, being in your role, you have to be somewhat confrontational. I look at trial lawyers as the top of confrontation. I'm going out there and I'm publishing my situation and why I was wronged to everybody and making somebody make a decision on that. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever see you in court, Willie. William, I hope that's not going to happen. Yeah. So anyways, growing up in Des Moines and now raising your family in Bondurant, how has that Iowa upbringing shaped your approach to helping clients with personal and professional challenges?
Yeah, great question. I mean, you always hear the phrase Iowa nice. That's what people talk about with Iowa. I think that's true. Iowa's really grounded in a pretty good moral sense. It's rare you find somebody from here that, doesn't treat people well and with respect. And I think that's the goal. And, it's something I hope to impress upon my clients as I help them. And certainly hope that my kids are learning that growing up too. That's part of why we've stayed here. We made a really conscious decision when we got married and wanted to have kids that we wanted to stay in Iowa and in central Iowa in particular, not only because we have family here, but the values of the state and this community really carry through no matter what walk of life you're in.
So the organizations that you help out with, I don't see mock trial on here. Do you help out anything with mock trial? Did you do mock trial as a kid? Are you going to make your kids do mock? Tell me all about mock trial. Do you do anything?
Sure. Shockingly, no. I did mock trial once in middle school for a year. And to be honest, I hated it, which is kind of funny that I'm in this position, right? This is my career path. It just wasn't my cup of tea. So for me, mock trial is, I don't want to call it specialized, but there is an element of it that is so very unique to that format and how they're teaching kids. Because some of it, although there's the legal elements of crafting an argument and figuring out how to present a case and some very limited rules of evidence and things like that, a lot of it, honestly, is an acting component. That is not my strong suit. So for me, how you read things as a witness or are doing those kind was not something for me whatsoever. I kind of gravitate more towards the argument side, and that's where the debate came in. So mock trial is not my deal, to be honest.
Impressive. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was never an actor. I've got a face for radio, which is why I picked up the podcast. I didn't realize it was going to be a video, but I did a lot of mock trial, and I thought of myself as a leader growing up, and I hated mock trial from the standpoint of I had to think on my feet quick, right? I wasn't the debate type that you were. I needed the debate knowledge in my, or the quick reactions that you had. And in fact, I remember this is the one thing that stands out to me from mock trial being as a kid. My dad came over to the side there and was just saying, "Hey, you're doing good. Keep it up." Well, that was like after a short recess. Came back, the opposing team filed a motion that I was getting outside information from one of the crowd or whatever. Basically, they were trying to get me in trouble. The judge started getting upset with me, and I was like freaking out. My dad was just telling me way to go, and I was getting in trouble. What the heck? So my dad was trying to be nice, and he got me in trouble. So I actually need to go back and ask him about that. That sounds kind of fun now.
That's funny. That's a good story.
So after a busy week helping clients, what do you do to relax?
Yeah. So for me right now, it's the best time of the year. It's Kansas City Chiefs football. So, it's conference championship weekend this weekend. Go Chiefs. I'll make sure I spend a couple hours at least watching the game. But, it's a lot of family time. Our girls are both highly involved in competitive dance. So I am the dance dad now, which means I'm the prop dad. So if I'm not down at the studio helping them practice, I'm at competitions helping roll the props out onto stage. So that takes a lot of time on the weekends for us. Absolutely love it. Never thought I would, but it is a lot of fun.
How many dances have you done, Dad?
I have done 0, thankfully, still. They tried. We were at Nationals this last summer up in Wisconsin in the Dells, and on the last day, it was Father's Day. So they tried to call the dads out on stage to do a competition between the dads, and there was a little pushing, and I kind of looked at them and said, "You don't want that to happen." So I was not one of the dads.
TikTok? Have you done the TikTok dances yet with the daughters?
No, won't even touch it.
That's coming soon, as long as it stays around. But it's good to know you're a Chiefs fan, and I hope you buy your black and white striped jersey for the game this weekend. I know you're excited for that. Oh, hey, that's a bad joke, isn't it?
Ooh, that hits a little close down.
As someone who's passionate about your community, what are some of your favorite family-friendly activities or hidden gems around Bondurant?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Bondurant's a really nice community because it's still a small community. So you kind of have that small town feel, but it's not so small that we don't have things to do. So we've got a really good park and trail system. So the bike trails that run through Ankeny and all the way across kind of central Iowa actually run right through the heart of Bondurant. And so there's a number of parks there that come across the trails. And our downtown has a few nice little places. We've got a really nice coffee shop called Somewhere in the Middle. People love it. It's great. There's a really good barbecue place in town that just opened up, Farm Boys Barbecue. It used to be a food truck, and now they have a brick and mortar place. So we're kind of on that cusp of growing. We could use a few more restaurants and a few more shops, but they started doing kind of off the family-friendly side, but they're doing a new development. It's called the Grain Elevator District, I believe is what they're calling it. So they took the old grain elevator in town that one of the co-ops was using, and the developers bought that out, and they're going to put a hotel in there, a bunch of shops, housing, restaurants. Supposedly there's going to be some kind of either bar or distillery or something he's putting in. So it sounds like it's going to be a really cool project. It's probably going to take 5 or so years to put together, but they're going to convert the old grain elevator supposedly into a hotel.
That's cool.
Yeah, kind of creative.
Yeah. Shoot, he needs to bring that idea down to Altoona, just 5 minutes south, and let's do that there too.
No, we don't want to lose it.
That's awesome. Well, knowing that you're partner now, what does the future look like from your personal perspective as well as the business overall?
Yeah. So the idea is always growth and sustainability. We want to keep what we have. We have a really great client base. A lot of clients who've been with the firm from its inception, when Jeff, one of my current partners, and Jim, who retired when I became partner and started the firm back in the 90s. So our philosophy has always been, we want clients for life. We don't want to just do one real estate transaction or do your divorce or do your will. We want you to come back to us for all of your legal needs. And that really kind of gets back into those core values we talked about at the beginning of honesty, transparency, making sure people are comfortable with the advice they're getting and that they know we actually care about them. So for me, that's a sustainability aspect. We want to keep what we have. That's goal number one. But then there's a growth element. Ankeny is a growing community. There's a lot of untapped, when you think from a business model perspective, potential clients both in Ankeny and the surrounding area. So there's the ability for us to, as this community grows, especially the north side of Des Moines, so your Bondurants, even over to the east side in terms of Altoona, Ankeny, and that gap between Ankeny and Ames, and there's a lot of room for growth. So that's something we're looking to continue down the path to as well.
So thinking about you being a trial lawyer, To me, that sounds like it's a strenuous thing. You're very active, out and about a lot. Think of, I don't know, the stereotypical older attorney is sitting at the desk most of the day and then going home. Is there a future for you of I want to start focusing on something else within law that maybe doesn't have me out running around nonstop? That, it might be, maybe it's 20 years from now, but is there like a future of changing what you focus on, or is it sticking with this and doing this forever until you can't do it anymore?
Well, for me, I still love it. So, I'm not there yet. Do I see that in the future? Probably. It's a grind. We always kind of practice that if you're going to have a day of trial, you're going to have at least a full day of prep. And that's a 12-hour day. So whether that happens in one day or it's split up over several days, that's just what it takes. So a lot of that gets spent on the weekend or at night, because even though you're preparing for a trial, you still have everything else going on for all your other clients. So they don't just get set aside for a week while you're in trial. You have to manage it all. So, there is a grind to it. I think eventually I'll probably reach the point where I'd have some younger, more eager attorneys take that over. But for me right now, I still love it. So it's not anywhere on the horizon. Let's put it that way.
Awesome. All right. Well, now we're going to get into the quick pick segment. I'm just going to ask you some this or that. You just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. And if you want to expand upon it, you can.
Okay.
Pizza or tacos?
Pizza.
Any specific kind?
I love Felix and Oscar's deep dish. My wife introduced that to me way long time ago. And so it's probably favorite.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs. I have both, but definitely the dogs.
Says a lot about your cats.
They don't like me. So and the feeling's mutual.
Summer or winter?
I'm a winter fan, which is a little bit weird. You probably don't hear that from a lot of people. I don't love the heat. I don't mind the cold. So for me, I like it.
I mean, you're inside of a courthouse or in your office a lot of that time, so it's just nice to look out outside, right? Like, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
Netflix binge or outdoor adventure?
Probably Netflix binge. I should say the other, but Netflix is a lot more fun.
Road trip or flying?
Flying. I hate car rides. Absolutely hate them.
Cooking at home or dining out?
Cooking at home. That's something I really enjoy, actually. We do a lot of at-home cooking, trying different recipes, things like that. I'm not going to claim to be any kind of special chef by any stretch of the imagination, but I do enjoy it.
Do you have a cookbook app that you use at all?
No, not really. We just kind of find stuff. So we do a lot of the recipes online, and then you just kind of modify them and what you like and don't like, those kinds of things.
A little tip that I just learned the other day was that if you find a recipe and you really like it, open up DuckDuckGo on your phone, and it'll get rid of all the ads. So you find these like Rachel Ray recipes, and you have to scroll so long because the pictures are massive and the ads take up half the page, and you're trying to find where the actual instructions are to make this darn thing. You open up DuckDuckGo, it's nice, clean, and it's the web pages are actually really short. The ads make them ridiculously long.
Yeah, you can never get down to the ingredients or what you're supposed to do with them.
Right. I keep going to the top. All right. Next up, comedy or drama?
Drama.
City life or country living?
Kind of in between. That's why we picked Bondurant where we live. It's a little bit of both.
Texting or calling?
Calling.
Sweet or savory? Go-to sweet. What's your go-to?
Donuts or Reese's Cups.
Or a donut with Reese's Cups on it, like Hertz?
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
Sneakers or dress shoes?
Sneakers.
Ice cream cone or milkshake?
Ooh, milkshake.
Absolutely. You ever go to Snooki's and get that? They've got my wife got a large one time. A large is basically a quart of ice cream in a shake or malt. I drank that entire thing driving from Snooki's down to out to Altoona, and I was so miserable the rest of the day because that was so much ice cream, but it was so good.
It doesn't seem like that much when you're doing it, though, does it?
No, never. That straw is just so big. It just goes right through. Sports game or live concert?
Sports game.
Board games or video games?
Yeah, probably indifferent, to be honest. You could do either. Neither really sticks out to me as a preference.
As the girls get older, I think board games really start to become a thing. When kids get older and they can start playing a lot, it's just like, I'd rather sit.
We're kind of on the cusp of that now where they're starting to understand things. So they got a game, Sorry, for Christmas, if you remember that game.
Yep.
And they can kind of play it. I'm not sure they fully understand it. One does, one doesn't, I should clarify. And the one who does will absolutely cheat her way to victory every single time.
How old are they?
8 and 6.
You got to get Candyland.
Ooh, good call.
That's an easy one. That's like the first game for them. And then there's a new game out there called Piggy Piggy.
Oh, I haven't heard that
And
one.
my wife got it for the kids for Christmas, and we play it almost every night.
Huh.
It's a
Good to
super
know.
easy pig game. The kids love playing with the little toy pigs, and there's cards, and it's a fun one. Sports game or live concert?
Sports game.
Classic rock or country music?
Country.
Anything in particular?
We went to see Thomas Rhett at the State Fair, and I didn't know how that show would be live because I'd heard some kind of mixed reviews. It was awesome.
Cool. All right, let's get into the trending topics. So today we'd like to talk a little bit about easements. And William, before the show, you and I were talking, and I'm really curious what the legal aspect of these natural pipelines that are coming through the state. Companies are doing it. The government is doing it. And with the change in presidency, I'm sure we're to hear more about that coming soon. But when somebody's saying, hey, I really want to buy 40 acres of land, Kyle, and I want to put up a house, and I need to put in a well, and I need to put in septic and this, that, and the other, the topic of easements comes up, and what is yours versus what can you not build on because the easements may be already in place because of a potential pipeline coming. What does that look like from the legal perspective for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, just from a basic sense, easements are something we see on almost every single property. So when we review an abstract to see what is going on with title to a property, there's almost an easement on everything anymore, whether that's your utility lines, oil or gas pipeline, whatever it is. There's going to be something that touches almost anything, especially newer developments in the suburbs. You get out in the country, there might be a little bit less just because it's unincorporated land sometimes, so you don't have as many types of easements there. You're dealing with your drainage districts, those kinds of things typically. But, the new thing with these carbon pipelines, we've seen a lot of those coming where they're transporting carbon out, or even the oil pipeline they were talking about building for quite some time across Iowa. Their biggest goal is to try to buy land to put that in and establish a strip of land where you can't build, can't modify, can't alter it because that's where the pipeline is and they need to be able to maintain it. So when you're purchasing a property, that is an absolute risk anymore that, number one, you can have some old easements that deal with some stuff that you don't even know is there that you need. But number two, as we see more pipelines and those kinds of things, you're going to run both into, is there an easement existing? And is somebody going to come knocking, requesting one? And what's that look like for your plans and what you're doing on the property?
So then tell me, does the government decides they're going to run a pipeline of some sort from north to south and it cuts through a corner of my land?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have any legal rights to saying no?
So it depends a little bit what you're dealing with. So some of the pipelines we're seeing really are private development. And so a lot of those they're coming in and actually paying to acquire that easement. A lot of times there's payments over time. There's an upfront payment. Think of it almost like a lease. You're going to reap the benefit for so many years while that easement's in place. The other thing is when you have a taking, that's where the government says they're going to take that piece of land for an easement. And you see it kind of in the historical context of highways. So you think of like Interstate 35 going north and south through Iowa. Over the years, they have taken a lot of farm ground that way to build that interstate and then expand it in the areas they need on the side. And that's always kind of been a sore topic for farmers in Iowa. Well, the same thing can happen with pipelines, but you're less likely to have the government funded parts of that. The government's coming and taking it. Where the government gets involved is usually after a private corporation has gotten approval. And if they're struggling to acquire a certain area, it is possible for the government to say, we're taking this for a public purpose. And we haven't seen a lot of that with the current push for pipelines, to be quite honest, because those pipelines have been rather lucrative for the landowners. So there hasn't been a push for that yet, but it could happen.
Awesome. Well, William, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. If anybody feels like they've learned anything, if they feel like they have questions about something that we didn't discuss, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, great. I appreciate that. You can call us at the office. Our number here is 515-964-8777. And then my email is really simple. It's just my first and last name. So william.strong@Ankeny Law.
Awesome. Well, William, thanks again. And thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of The Lofty Lender. It was a pleasure having William Strong with Ankeny Law share his insights and experiences with us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Please be sure to follow us on social media platforms, subscribe to the podcast, and remember, stay curious, and we'll see you next week on The Lofty Lender.
Thanks, Kyle.